Imagine walking into your lavender field at sunrise and finding a strange craft sitting among your crops. Two small beings standing beside it, examining your plants. You try to approach them. One turns, points a device at you, and suddenly you can't move. Paralyzed, watching as they calmly board their craft and disappear into the sky. Tonight, I'm taking you to Valensole, France, to July 1st, 1965, to tell you about Maurice Masse, a hard-working farmer who encountered something that would change his life and leave physical evidence that investigators still can't explain. This is the Valensole encounter. Maurice Masse was a 41-year-old lavender farmer in Valensole, a small village in the Provence region of southeastern France. He was a practical man, known throughout the village as honest, hard-working, and level-headed, not the type to make up stories or seek attention. On the morning of July 1st, 1965, Maurice arrived at his lavender field around 6 a.m., as he did every morning during the growing season. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the purple fields in golden light. As Maurice walked through his property, he noticed something unusual. Beyond a small stone wall in a section of his field, he saw what he first thought was a helicopter or some kind of aircraft that had made an emergency landing. But as he got closer, he realized this was nothing he had ever seen before. The object was oval-shaped, about the size of a small car, sitting on 6 thin legs. It looked like 2 bowls placed rim to rim with a small dome or cupola on top. The surface was smooth, metallic, and seemed to be made of a material that reflected light in an unusual way. But what caught Maurice's attention even more were the 2 figures standing beside it. They were small, about the height of an 8-year-old child, maybe 3.5 to 4 feet tall. They wore one-piece suits that appeared to be gray-green in color. Their heads were large and bald, with pale skin. They were crouched down, appearing to examine Maurice's lavender plants. Maurice's first thought was that these might be children from the village playing in his field. He was about to call out to them when he realized these weren't children at all. Maurice began walking toward the beings, initially thinking he would confront whoever was trespassing on his property. He was maybe 15 to 20 feet away when one of the beings noticed him. The creature stood up and looked directly at Maurice. Its face was pale, almost featureless except for large dark eyes and a small slit for a mouth. No nose that Maurice could distinguish. The being showed no expression that Maurice could read, just an intense, focused stare. Then the being reached to its belt and withdrew a small tubular device. It pointed the object at Maurice. Instantly, Maurice felt his entire body freeze. He couldn't move a muscle. His legs locked in place. His arms hung at his sides, unresponsive. He couldn't even turn his head. Only his eyes could move, and he watched in frozen terror as the 2 beings calmly observed him. Maurice described the sensation as complete paralysis, but without pain. He could breathe, he could see, he could hear, but his body wouldn't obey any command from his brain. It was as if he had become a statue, conscious but immobilized. The beings communicated with each other, though Maurice couldn't understand their language. It sounded like gurgles or soft clicking sounds, nothing like any language he knew. They seemed completely unbothered by his presence now that he was neutralized. After what felt like several minutes, the beings turned and walked back toward their craft. Their movement was unusual, Maurice later recalled, not quite walking, but more like gliding across the ground with minimal leg movement. They approached their craft and a door or opening appeared in its side. Maurice couldn't see how it opened, it was simply there. The beings climbed aboard. The craft began to emit a soft humming sound, growing louder. It lifted off the ground, maybe 20 feet into the air, hovering silently for a moment. Then it shot away at incredible speed, disappearing into the morning sky in seconds. As soon as the craft vanished, Maurice felt sensation returning to his body. The paralysis released and he nearly collapsed, his legs weak and shaky. He stood there for several minutes, breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. When Maurice finally gathered himself enough to examine the landing site, he found something extraordinary. Where the craft had been sitting, there was a circular depression in the ground, approximately 12 feet in diameter. The earth was compacted, harder than the surrounding soil. In the center were several deep holes where the craft's legs had pressed into the ground. But more dramatic was what happened to the plants. The lavender plants within and around the landing area were damaged. Some were completely dead. Others showed signs of desiccation, as if all moisture had been sucked out of them instantly. Maurice was devastated. Lavender was his livelihood, and this damage represented a significant loss. But as days passed, something even stranger became apparent. The affected area wouldn't grow anything. Not just the lavender, but any plant Maurice tried to cultivate in that spot simply wouldn't take root or would grow stunted and diseased. This continued for years. The landing site remained largely barren, a permanent scar on his field. Maurice initially kept the incident to himself. He knew how crazy it sounded. A practical farmer seeing aliens? Who would believe him? But his 18-year-old daughter noticed his distress and the strange damage to the field. She convinced him to report what he'd seen. When Maurice finally went to the local police, he was nervous and embarrassed, but the gendarmes took him seriously. They knew Maurice. He wasn't a drunk, wasn't mentally unstable, wasn't seeking attention. Something had clearly disturbed this steady, reliable man. The case was reported up the chain, eventually reaching French military intelligence and scientific investigators. What followed was one of the most thorough official investigations of a UFO encounter in French history. The French authorities sent investigators from multiple agencies. They interviewed Maurice extensively, visited the landing site, took soil samples, and examined the damaged plants. What they found supported Maurice's account in disturbing ways. The soil in the landing area showed unusual properties. It was harder, more compacted than surrounding areas, suggesting extreme pressure or heat. Chemical analysis revealed changes in the soil composition that investigators couldn't easily explain. The lavender plants showed damage consistent with exposure to intense heat or radiation, but in a pattern that didn't match any conventional source. The damage was too localized, too specific to the landing area. Perhaps most compelling was Maurice himself. He was subjected to psychological evaluation and was found to be completely sane, reliable, and genuine. He showed signs of real trauma from the encounter. He wasn't looking for fame or money. He just wanted to understand what had happened to him and restore his field. Investigator Aimé Michel, a prominent French UFO researcher, spent extensive time with Maurice. He noted that Maurice had difficulty sleeping after the encounter, experiencing nightmares and anxiety. Maurice also reported feeling unusually tired for weeks after the incident, possibly a side effect of whatever force had paralyzed him. The case attracted attention from scientists and researchers across France and beyond. The physical evidence, combined with Maurice's credibility as a witness, made the Valensole encounter one of the most compelling UFO cases in European history. Years later, researchers returned to the site and found that the affected area still showed unusual properties. Plants grew differently there. The soil remained altered. Whatever had landed in Maurice's field that morning had left a permanent mark. So what really happened in that lavender field on July 1st, 1965? Maurice Masse was a credible witness, a practical farmer with no history of fabrication or attention-seeking. The French authorities took him seriously enough to conduct a thorough investigation. The physical evidence supported his account. Damaged plants, altered soil, a clear landing impression. Could it have been a hoax? Maurice had no motive. He lost money from the damaged crops. He suffered psychological distress. He lived the rest of his life knowing people might think he was crazy. Could it have been misidentification? Of what? No conventional aircraft leaves such specific ground trace evidence. No known technology in 1965 could paralyze someone from a distance with a handheld device. Maurice Masse died in 2004, never changing his story. Until the end of his life, he maintained that what he saw that morning was real. The evidence in his field supported him. The French government's serious investigation supported him, and the lasting physical traces continued to support him. The Valensole encounter remains one of the most credible close encounter cases in UFO research. A simple farmer who wanted nothing more than to tend his lavender, who stumbled upon something extraordinary and carried that burden for the rest of his life. What do you think happened in that French lavender field? Real extraterrestrial encounter? Secret military experiment? Or something else entirely? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if this case intrigued you, subscribe for more deeply researched UFO encounters from around the world. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the most credible witnesses are the ones who never wanted to be witnesses at all.